Hi, so today I'm going to explain a salinity test. The salinity test indicates the amount of salts in the soil on your property. High salt levels can usually be very toxic to plants, so that's why you have them tested. The high salts usually affect the ability for the plants to be able to take up any water. So there's two different methods that you could do. The first method is you can get a sample from your soil and take it to a laboratory for testing. That's probably more accurate than the one I'm doing today. The test I'm doing today is just a field test, which you usually use an EC meter. I don't have an EC meter, but I'll do all the steps up until that, and then just take an estimate of a record. So to start with, what you're going to need to do the soil test, we've got a jar here. That's what you're going to mix the soil and the water up with. This is the soil here. I've just labelled it. This is the virgin soil I'm taking, the depth of 20 centimetres. That's just from the garden bed here. Measuring cup to measure the water. And I'm also going to take a potting mix. I've got a sample of the potting mix here. We'll take a salinity test of that as well. So to start with your soil, usually it's quite moist when you get it, so I've just dried this out a little bit, drying the soil out, and that way you can get all the clumps out and all the rocks. I've used a sifter to sift through the soil, that way you don't end up with any clumps larger than 2 millimeters. So I'll just sift through this. I've just popped it onto some baking paper so it's easier to collect. And as you can see, we've got a fair few pebbles in the soil, so I can take them out easy enough. Okay, so here I have the soil. I'm just going to pop it into the jar on the scales. Okay. So it's exactly 50. We've got 50 grams. So in that case, we're going to need 250 mils of water. Now, it's advisable to use rainwater or distilled water. I've just got some rainwater here. So I'm just going to get 250 mils.
Oh, this is rainwater. This is rainwater. This is rainwater, Mummy.
Okay, thank you.
It's got dirt in it.
Thank you. So then we need to shake the jar for a few minutes to make sure the salts dissolve. If you do have clay in your soil, it's recommended that you shake it for a little bit extra, just to bring out the salts in the clay. Okay, so once you've shaken your jar, it's good to have it settle for at least a few minutes, sometimes 15 minutes, depending. And then all you need to do is, with a salinity meter, you pop the probe into the water solution, not into the soil, and then you just take the reading from the salinity. Also, just looking at the jar, you can start to tell, you can even work out the percentage of sand, silt and clay. You can already see the sand and the silt settling to the bottom there, just after a few minutes. So just after taking the reading, just pretending I have a reading of 0.2, and that's decisiemens per metre. So yeah, just going by 0.2, that's an EC 1 to 5 reading. So what you need to do to get a reading of ECSE, the soil salinity, you need to multiply it by the amount on the conversion table. So our soil is pretty much a loam soil, so you need to multiply that by its 9.5, which gives you a reading of then 1.9 decisiemens per metre. Hi, so now I'm going to do the soil salinity test with the potting mix that we have. So I'm going to do the same. This is fairly dried out. I've had the sample bag open. So we're just going to sift the potting mix so we don't have any large clumps in it. You don't want anything more than 2 millimeters. Okay, so I've just put the potting mix into the water and shook it around a fair bit. Have it settle for a few minutes. It looks like it needs to settle for a lot longer. I could have possibly put it in a smaller jar so there was more of a water ratio, and then it'll be easier to take the sample. But yeah, so you put the probe into the water, not into the soil or the potting mix, and then you take your reading from that. And then also just remember to make sure you wash your EC meter. Make sure you wash it with distilled or rainwater as well and let it dry.